Good morning, everyone. My name is Tarek Amro, and I live in New York City. I'm 17 years old, and I attend the Lycée Français de New York. Today, I'll be presenting to you some of the great mansions of Beirut, their history, and the people that have lived in them. So my question is, the great mansions of Beirut, what are their stories, and who did or do they belong to? I'm not an expert on the topic, so please correct me and ask any questions and contribute if you know something that I don't know, or if I said something wrong. And I'm not trying to persuade anyone of my agenda or my view. I'm just trying to share some information that I've learned over the course of the past few weeks. So to begin, we will review the historical setting of when these palaces were built, before speaking about the architectural characteristics of these homes. And then finally, we will look into three particular palaces and discover the families that inhabited them and the legacy they maintain. So what led me to this? I am also a member of Lebanese. I'm also of Lebanese and Palestinian descent. As a member of the Lebanese diaspora, I've always been fascinated by Beirut, the city of my ancestors, one that is often remembered to have history built upon history. My initial interest was the evolution of Beiruti neighborhoods and how they changed through the Ottoman Empire, the French Mandate, and eventually the creation of the modern state of Lebanon. As you might know, Lebanon is a nation of many religious sects, which was the focus on and the main reason for the 15-year civil war that began in 1975. As I researched these neighborhoods further, I realized that what remained from before the civil war were these mansions. I began to be fascinated by the beautiful architecture of these palaces and their historical significance to the nation as a whole. I also began to wonder who these families that once inhabited these mansions were and how they represented a class, a nobility class for Lebanese society at a very prosperous time for Lebanon economically. Finally, I wanted to see how these homes evolved within their neighborhoods, often standing proudly among squalor and poverty in an economically deflated city and country. So, historical setting. In the mid-1850s, Beirut became an important port city, overtaking those of Saida and Tyre. It was at this time that these mansions were built by wealthy merchants and notables of the city. Beirut became an Ottoman vilayet, or province, in 1888, which allowed the port city to boom through its silk industry as it was given more importance. This flourishing economy enabled the burgeoning of a strong middle class, highly educated and very dynamic. It was also at this time that Beirut became a cultural hub, and by 1870, the city became the media hub of the region as well. With their growing wealth, the bourgeoisie of the city wanted to showcase their new status through aesthetic means. They were strongly influenced by the exchanges with neighboring Mediterranean countries, and these villas that they constructed reflected these interactions. While all the homes have their own designs and specificities, as they were designed in the same period, they also have many similarities. The exterior facade of these homes showcases a combination of European elements, representing the interaction that they had with the Mediterranean world. With in the photo on the top, we can see French roofing and tiles and window work that combines elements of Venetian and Islamic Mashrabi lattice work. We can trace the origins of the central hall house back to Mount Lebanon. The traditional dar architecture was mixed with Ottoman and European influences from the Mediterranean region. These homes were built from quarried stone, often with Romanian ironwork on balconies. The color of these homes are what some describe as sunset colors. In the pictures on the slide, we can see yellow sandstone, orange, red tile, and pink plaster. With time and further economic prosperity, these homes grew with extra floors, wings, and gardens, and eventually these mansions were connected to other homes as family compounds. Now for the interior, Beiruti mansions are all different but have one similarity, the central hall feature. The term central hall home was coined in the early 20th century to describe a grand building type, including the triple arched window and its two floors, with one major entrance to the main floor. Lebanese homes used to be large spaces with very few internal walls and no features other than an open courtyard. The central hall homes, which were built by these big and powerful families in Beirut, placed an emphasis on a triple arch central hall with private bedrooms, kitchens, and baths, As we can see in the image on the top, a layout of a typical central hall home where we have the hall in the middle and then around it, the kitchen, bathroom, and bedrooms to keep privacy. Prior to these constructions, there was no concept of privacy, and we can certainly argue that these homes allowed for a more modern and private way of life for the Lebanese. So now that we've spoken about the historical and architectural styles of these mansions, let's take a look at 3 examples of homes and the families that lived in them. So first off, the Tower of Musaitbeh, one of the most well-known villas in the city. The Tower of Musaitbeh's ground floor was built in 1845. It is also known as the Salam Palace. This home was built gradually, with a new floor being added in 1871 and a second in 1920. The Salam family continues to reside in this amazing mansion. While it was renovated over a 3-year process that started in 2017, the mansion still has the characteristics that give it its Beiruti identity. It has vaulted double-height ceilings, arched windows, and the typical central hall home design we mentioned previously. The mansion towers over Musaitbeh, a neighborhood that has now become very urban and impoverished. The tower was originally inhabited by Abdel Jalil Muhammad Salam when he moved to Musaitbeh from Ras Beirut in 1868. The Salam family has lived in the home since the mid-19th century. The family's prominence began with Abu Ali Salam, born in 1868, the son of the builder of the home. He first knew success as a merchant, trading in staples before moving into politics. He was also the president of Maqasid, which was a schooling system established all over Lebanon that still exists today. He was loyal to the Ottomans, but was always opposed to their political oppression. Eventually, due to his strong will and opposition to the Ottomans, he became the leader of the Beirut reform movement, which sought to leave the decision-making powers of Lebanon in the hands of the Arabs and not the Ottomans or the French. His son, Sa'ib Salam, the one in the middle in the slide, is the most important figure of the Salam family. He served as Prime Minister of Lebanon 6 times between 1952 and 1973. He's also known as the founder of Middle East Airlines, which is Lebanon's main airline company that is still running today. After surviving 2 assassination attempts at the beginning of the Civil War, in 1985, he went into exile in Geneva with his wife and kids, where he would eventually spend the rest of his life. Saib's son, Tamam Salam, is the latest prominent figure of the Salam political dynasty. He served as prime minister and president between 2014 and 2016, as parliament was unable to elect a president during that time, so he held both roles. He now lives in the Tower of Musaitbeh, and it was him and his wife that sought to renovate and preserve it. This is the Sursa Palace, built in 1860 for Musa Sursa. It has been passed down generations within the same family. The house, while it is traditional, was influenced heavily by French and European architecture, more so than the Tower of Musaitbeh. However, the palace still has many Lebanese features, such as the arches and a central hall home layout. So now about the family. The Sursa family was one of Beirut's most prominent families. They said that they had been in Beirut since 1714. The family made its wealth mainly in agriculture and then later in manufacturing. The family had many beautiful homes like the Sursa Palace throughout the city, the former being the largest and most impressive still. At their peak, they were close to the Ottoman leaders and held connections to aristocratic families in Egypt, France, Ireland, Russia, Italy, and Germany, so all over the world. However, the family lost its land and manufacturing sites in Palestine at the time of the creation of the State of Israel in 1948, and with the founding of Turkish and Egyptian nationalistic movements when they nationalized the land and took it for themselves. The Sursa Palace is one of the only remaining reminders of the family's once great power. Musa Sursa's son, Alfred Bey Sursa, lived in the palace until he passed away. And then his daughter, Yvonne Sursa, or Lady Cochrane, the woman that we can see on the slide here, inherited the palace and lived there until her death after the Beirut port explosion in 2020. So now, finally, arguably the most famous mansion on the list is the Rose House, built in 1882 by Muhammad Ardati, who wanted to expand his current hunting lodge and did so by adding 2 floors on top of it. This home is in Ras Beirut, a nice residential neighborhood of the city, near the famous original lighthouse known as the Manara. Between 2014 and 2015, the Rose House was open to the public as an artist named Tom Young put on an exhibition of paintings that he had made of the house. For the first time since its construction, the house is now owned by someone outside of the Ardati Daou family, now by Hisham Jaroudi, who wishes to renovate it and turn it into museums. The Ardati family and the closely related Daoud family lived in the house until the mid-20th century. The Daoud family, more than the Ardatis, is very important to Beirut's history. First arriving in the city during the 15th century, fleeing the Reconquista in Spain, they established themselves as what were known as one of the 7 families of Beirut. These 7 families agreed centuries ago that they would be the leaders of Beirut, and this is only a story, but this tale is still known today. The Daoud family owns many other homes in Ras Beirut and continues to be one of the most highly respected families of the city. The 2 families lent the first floor of the Rose House to many dignitaries, such as Charles de Gaulle, for a period of time. Eventually, the ground and first floor were rented to the El Hazen family, who lived there from 1965 until as recently as 2014. While his parents were staying on the first floor, Sami El Hazen, an artist and designer, took it upon himself to renovate the ground floor, which he turned into what is now a world-famous interior. The Ardati family sold the home in 2012 and were given 2 years to vacate it. It is now owned, as I previously mentioned, by Hisham Jaroudi, who is now attempting to turn it into a museum. We can see in this photo on the slide Tom Young's exhibition, the one I had mentioned previously. And so here are some paintings, and then a lot of the exhibition was paintings of the actual home that he had made over a period of 2 years. So this is kind of my conclusion, a time of social change. These homes represent a particular time in Lebanese history. The Central Hall House became a symbol of modernism for Lebanese society in the 19th century. Beirut was, as I mentioned earlier, a bustling hub where many cultures met through commerce and innovation. Indeed, the Ottomans and the European merchants worked together to build the port of Beirut. And from there were born various infrastructure projects, which helped Beirut rise to even greater prominence. For example, a rail line to Damascus and a tramway system to connect that connected the great areas of the city. At the time, the Grand Sérail, which is the huge building that we can see on the slide, which continues to house the Prime Minister and his government today, was one of the grandest examples of the Central Hall architecture. This Grand Sérail reflects the modern architecture of homes being built at a similar time by Beirut's elite families. These homes were often facing north for health reasons, because they believed that letting wind and light flow through the house would bring proper ventilation and lighting to the home, and therefore would prevent illnesses. Many researchers believe that the proliferation of these homes may be due to the cholera pandemics, which affected Beirut in the late 19th century, and these homes were presented as solutions. Women benefited as well from the widespread construction of these central halls. Many literary salons run by women began to spring up because of the halls, as they provided a great space to host guests and discuss without anyone intruding on the privacy of their bedrooms. Here are my sources, and thank you.